Hey guys, how's it going? Danny Fitzy here, and today we're going to be looking at a Hopeshredder build that I've been playing over the last few days in the Delirium League. And let's just say it's far from min-maxed and it's doing pretty well. It's cruising through some T14, 15, 16 maps. Has pretty good damage. Single target starting to get up there now, starting to ramp that up with Barrage. Barrage, when optimized, can do insane amounts of single target damage. And it's starting to pull off some pretty nifty boss kills now. It's got great clear. There's a few ways you can play it, and you don't have to use Ice Shot, but I found that Ice Shot just scales the best with the way I've built it. And it's just an overall fun character to build because the Hopeshredder is actually quite a fun little item to build around. It's nothing too special. It is basically just a stack as many frenzies as you can to get the most benefit out of it. Although there is a slight downside. But I will go over the exact pieces of gear that I'm working with in a minute. We're just going to do a map. A map to show off the single target without... Ballistica's pretty good, right? I don't know if this is the phasing one, so this could be a long ass map. And it might be a waste of time, but so this is minus res. I don't really want to be doing beyond because it will lag out. This is not too bad. Although the less recovery, as you'll see, does fudge us a little bit, but it's not too bad. And I will just stick some sack frags in there because I have so freaking many sack frags. I don't even know which one I didn't grab. And then we'll just put domination in there just for some more mobs. And I'm not going to fill it with a bunch of crap because it's, if you want to see me play the build, you can watch me live on stream. I'll probably be playing it for maybe a day or two, at least a day or two. I've just finished crafting a sword for my next build, which is going to be a cast on crit. So, looking forward to that. So, you just want to make sure your stone golems up there. You're fucking slow as shit until you get your frenzies. But once you hit once, you're already at max frenzies, and then you just pound town from there, you know what I mean? I'm actually using Arrow Nova at the moment, but I did have GMP in for the longest time and it was just as good. But I wanted to play the build a little bit a little bit differently. And I thought Ice Nova would be quite fun. It's a little bit different in it, shoot up to the sky. Those hands, and I don't know if anyone's played Delirium here a lot, but those hands that grab you are the most annoying thing in the whole league. If they just got rid of that, this league would be literally twice as good. And since we're a raider in this build, so we're stacked quite a fair bit of evasion, so we're just naturally dodging most of the abilities. We're not actually tanky. It's more of like a, it feels like a tanky until you're not. So you'll probably notice in kind of like a map like this, in a minute we might just get randomly one shot by something, especially the deeper we stack up the delirium. And there are some builds at the moment that the deeper you go into the delirium and stuff starts to become tankier, you don't really notice a difference. This build, you will start noticing a difference. It doesn't. I did not click that. I don't really want to go in here when the delirium's on because it wastes, and it will just reset my frenzies. God damn it. Yeah, you don't really feel it sometimes, but with this build, since it's not min-maxed, obviously our potential is still very high, and I've wasted the fork there. So we have a lot of potential damage to gain still. So it's not like this is the best version of what you're looking at, but that's not too bad actually. Keep saying a lot because I'm obviously concentrating on killing the mobs in the map. But it's still pretty good. It's got really good clear, and like I said, the single target can definitely get up there. Let me just clear the rest of this side bit, and then I'll go smash the boss. If it's the annoying phasing boss, I might not do the whole fight just to save some time and file size. Because I have terrible internet and having like a 20 gig fucking video is no fun to upload. I'm just trying to get my Flasks back because I needed them. I don't mind. Quite fast when we have frenzies up because of the boots and stuff. But when you don't have any frenzies, yeah. And you can see we're slowly dying here. But it's not too bad. And then single target. I mean, it's respectable, right? And you'll notice a lot of the burst is actually coming from the void shot, which is the void Flexure, the void shots. Yeah, this is the phase one. I don't know if he turns into Innocence, I can't remember. But as you can see, it's quite nice just to have like two skills, right? That you don't have to like gem swap or anything, you know. One button does one thing, one button does the other. It's quite a nice play style. I mean, if you've played any sort of bow build, you'll know this is kind of... Stop fucking running away. This is kind of the meta for bows anyway, because Barrage is so strong for single target and the rest of their skills are not so much, unless it's like maybe... so I think Scourge Arrow has pretty good single target. You can see that is pretty respectable, I'd say. And that's probably more than any other build I normally play, and it's, like I said, it's far from min-max. There are a lot of things in this build which I'll go over that can be upgraded, and there's obviously like that whole, if you want to spend mirrors worth of currency on it, you can get some insane damage. Oh yeah, he stops at 25%, so... But yeah, it is a fun build. If you like playing a bow build, I definitely recommend it. The bow itself is not expensive at all. If you get it un-6 linked, you're looking at like 20, 30, 40 C, depending on how good of a roll you want. I'm just waiting to burst. Oh yeah, and I dodged the slam. Good thing about having high evasion is just sometimes you feel really invincible when you're really not. So there you go, there was a little map for you. Oh, let me go drop the stacked dicks. Imagine if I get some mad rare. Okay, never mind, that's terrible. I could have made the video poggers, but... Right, so... We're just going to clear this in the dump. Take a big old dump in the tab. And then we'll go over the gear, the gems, the passive tree, and all that good stuff. I don't know why I tapped in and out there. Right, so the build focuses around Hopeshredder, which is a bow you get from killing... just kill him, he's pissed me off. I believe it drops from Elder. I don't know if it's Uber Elder as well, but as you can see, it's got the Elder influence. It's a special unique. And what makes this bow so good is it has insanely high elemental damage, cold damage roll, a really good attack speed, almost T1 attack speed roll. It's got a nice chunk of accuracy on it, so you already, you don't have to stack as much accuracy to reach that cap. And then obviously it's all the frenzy generation stuff you get. So you get movement speed, more added cold damage, attack damage leached as life, and as there's a downside, you're taking cold damage per second with frenzy while moving. But you'll see, as you saw on that map, there's no situation where I was like, oh shit, I'm slowly dying. I need to do something about it. Because if you're hitting something, you're leeching. If you're running around and there's literally nothing around, and you are slowly dying, and that was a 60% less regen map as well that I was just in, it's very unlikely that you'll ever drop like to annoying amounts of life. Honestly, I've had worse setups with Blood Rage draining my health more than this does, especially with a Taste of Hate and capped res. This thing is not actually doing that much damage. It's only a couple hundred cold damage per second, and then you just counter that cold with life regen. And there's even more items you can get with life regen. There's some boots that give you like a flat 100 life regen, I believe. I think they're the deck stacking ones that give you life per decks, like 2 life per 10 decks or whatever they are, but they have a bunch of life regen on them. Flat regen's obviously huge to get rid of it. I've barely invested in life regen and it's not been an issue. I basically have a stone golem, and I don't think I've done anything particularly other than maybe a Taste of Hate, but also gives us some extra other benefits. That's literally all I've done to counteract the effects of that, and it feels smooth as hell. So, but yeah, like I said, you're getting so much cold damage from this bow. It's just insane. So naturally, you're going to go Ice Shot. Ice Shot has so much added cold effectiveness. I did try with Tornado Shot, and it felt terrible in comparison. And as you can see, it's got 176% added cold effectiveness. So that basically means you're getting like 1.7 times the amount of damage you're adding. So if you're adding 10 damage, you're actually adding 17 damage, for example. And that means like when you start adding thousands of cold damage, you're actually getting so much more. So you're getting basically 70% more than you're putting in. Plus, it's a great skill for clear because it cones when it hits. The only thing you need to make sure of, which I'll get over in some more specifics of the gear, is that you don't have pierce, otherwise it's actually worse. Having a lot of pierce with ice shot is actually worse for your clear, since you don't get the cones. It only cones on its final shot or when it chains. I don't believe it cones when it pierces. I think it's just a projectile, but I might be wrong on that. But every time I've played with pierce, it's felt terrible. So either way, definitely don't want to get pierce. But yeah, so the bow's pretty cheap, and the aim of the game is to stack as much frenzies as you've got. I've got an 8 at the moment, but it's quite easy to get 10 in my current situation. I can easily get a +1 on gloves with a little bit of investment and probably a ring maybe, but that'll be taking it a little bit even higher. I guess the ceiling of this build does kind of go quite high. There is a very min-max situation going on here. For the helmet, we're just using a Star Conjures. It's just something I had. It doesn't even have the right enchant on it. It's just a nice one I had that was well rolled. If you're going an invasion build and you're not going to be stacking loads of life and you're relying on dodge, it's a really good solid all-round cheap helmet to get that has a lot of enchants as well, and they're usually a little bit cheaper because everyone just enchants a Star Conjures because of how good and readily available it is. So obviously a nice upgrade for this build right now would just be to get like some damage to Ice Shot, maybe even some like Curse Effect for Assassin's Mark, which I don't even have in the build yet, which is definitely something I'm upgrading next. So yeah, the next item that's, I would say, mandatory in terms of your single target is Void Flexure. Not only because it adds a shit ton of added cold, it gives you some nice little bit of cold and mana on kill for mapping. The energy shield is whatever. If you're going CI for whatever reason, I guess the energy shield's alright. But the void shots that you can see counting up, they don't count in hideout, unfortunately. You'll get like this little grey arrow that builds up to 5, and every time you shoot yourself, you're going to use one of those void flechers, and that was those purple explosions you could see happening everywhere. But what happens when you use Barrage is Barrage fires 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 depending on how many added arrows you've got. In my case, without my Dying Sun up, it's firing 5. Each arrow triggers a Void Flexure shot. So when you Barrage, you actually dump all your Void Flechures out in one go, therefore creating a lot of burst damage and then giving you insane amounts of single target or burst potential, and they do quite a lot of damage. These aren't just some like things you should just be like, well, yeah, it's just a cool little effect that comes on the screen and doesn't do anything. They hit pretty hard, especially if they're critting. And you can see here, I mean, I know I'm in town, but I mean, they got 8k damage at the moment with no frenzies up. Imagine we are frenzy stacking, so you know our damage is ramped right from our frenzies. They have base crit, so if you have a lot of crit, then you can get them to do even more damage. And honestly, sometimes you'll notice you'll go up to a boss or an elite, you'll just hit your barrage, and you'll just see it go poof in the purple explosion because it'll just do so much more damage than the barrage sometimes. And it's just a fun way to play as well. The void fletchers are really fun. Just make sure to aim them because the void fletchers are cursor bound. So if I shoot here, they're going to land right on this map device bit, and obviously AoE and area damage scales them as well. So you know, if you have your thing all the way off the edge of the screen and the mob's like on top of you, then you're not going to hit with your void fletcher. So just make sure you land them. And sometimes you'll like go to land them and then the boss will move or something will TP or you'll miss and it's kind of depressing. But yeah, the Void Flexure is insanely good, and those void shots are nothing to be laughed at. They do some serious damage. And then you want to make sure if you're going to use Ice Shot, get a corrupted one that has any corruption other than the original implicit, which is the additional pierce. Like I said before, pierce for Ice Shot just feels terrible. At least the last time I played it, and I've heard people say before, don't get pierce. I've heard someone, I can't remember who it was, on a stream or something, they mentioned about this. Just do not have pierce on it. It's just going to make your clear feel a lot worse. And this one was nothing. I mean, the Fizz extra doesn't really do too much because this bow doesn't have a lot of Fizz damage on it, and we're not scaling Fizz. We're purely adding just shit tons of cold damage. But it's a little bit of extra lightning damage, as you can see, 28 to 59 with no frenzies. Remember, frenzies are a more multiplier, global more multiplier, so when we have 8 up, we have 32% more damage, I think, if my math is correct. So that's like over everything, right? Plus attack speed. We scale off attack speed as well. So yeah, those are I would say these two and the chest, which you've probably seen before in every bow build. Just insanely good. It's basically like a 7th link. It's been nerfed now, but still like 6.75 link. The added cold it gives you is insane. It gives you a fuck ton of evasion. Like I said, we're scaling off evasion. Even without an evasion flask, we're at like 20k evasion. So we have 52% chance to evade. I think we get more evade per frenzies as well. So we're at about 60%, which is pretty decent. If you put Jade Flask on, you'll probably hit the cap if you have the increased evasion as the suffix as well. And then yeah, some more flat dodge as well, just to cushion that evade. And it's just a brilliant all-round chest for any bow build that's scaling elemental, and especially cold. So I would say these are the 3 items that kind of make the build. Obviously it would go Hopeshredder, then I'd probably say Void Flexure, because the Void Flexure helps Barrage, and Barrage is our single target, and Hopeshredder doesn't really add enough damage to carry Barrage, so you do need maybe a bit of that extra burst, like I said, from the Void Shot. Star Conjures you can easily swap out for a crafted helm. The better enchant, you can even go the Shrine Helmet if you just want a map. That's something I'm considering. Then my amulet is just placeholder for now. It had like multi on it. It had huge amounts of int, which is why it was missing. If I take this off, you see I brick 2 of my items here. And I don't know, it's Ellie Focus is the int here, and then the Enlighten's the int here. So I guess if you could drop those for something else. When I go over the gem links, I'll say some other gems that are better. But yeah, I'm only using this. Basically multi, stats, or attributes. I can't think of anything else. There's probably some nice influence mods, but I haven't really looked into it because I haven't looked into changing my amulet just yet. I've been more focused on maybe changing my rings because I need another curse. Well, I want a curse. I don't have any curse at the moment. So yeah, but the main thing is multi-life, and then if you need a chunk of int like I have, find a chunk of int. And then I've anointed Divine Judgment. It's just some Ellie damage and element Ellie pen. There are some other contenders that are just as good, or if not better, and one of them is King of the Hill or Master Fletcher. This one would be better for you, but I don't like the knockback, but I'll get to that when I go over the tree. The knockback from that skill is rather irritating. So yeah, then we've got a Circle of Fear, which is just a Herald of Ice ring. It gives us more added cold. Gives us a little bit of damage, cold damage and leech on the implicits. This wasn't an expensive one. This was about a 1x I think when I bought it. Cold res, it was just easier to cap my cold res at the time. And Herald of Ice buff effect just means Herald of Ice, the added cold that it's given us is basically just doubled if you get 100% roll. So we're basically getting like 80 to 110 added cold to attacks rather than what it says there. Which is quite nice. Just more added cold, as you can see a pattern here. Flat cold is an added cold damage to attacks. It's pretty much the name of the game. Then I have this randomly crafted ring. I made this just to fill out my resists. I made it with a essence. I can't remember the name of the essence, but the 4 to 7 cold damage per frenzy is an essence craft. It's not as powerful as I thought it might have been. Definitely a curse on hit ring is going to outweigh this 100%. Ellie weakness or even Assassin's Mark over Ellie weakness in this build, because we already have a lot of cold pen on our single target setup, which is when we need it, and we're not an assassin, so we can't easily get power charges. So power charge generation and more crit and base crit on the mobs is super juicy compared to Ellie weakness in this instance. So obviously a ring here with Assassin's Mark and then any other stats you can get is going to outweigh this completely, but at the moment I'm restricted by my resists, so I have to change a few pieces of gear before I can change one piece of gear, otherwise my resists are completely cooked. And you can even swap out this ring. I I mean, you could get an increased cold and Herald Ice buff effect, but that's the most expensive synthesized ring you can get. I think it's like 10 to 13x, so I don't recommend that if you're trying to do it cheap. But if you're going to min-max, that could be a play. But also, you could just get a massive, Mark of the Elder might be really good here actually. And you can get a Shaper and Elder influence ring if you awaken Orbit and get both benefits from it. So you get huge attack damage, and you won't be able to get stunned. So that is something I've considered as well actually. And I've just brought it up now because I've been thinking about Assassin's Mark so much. But you could get an Assassin's Mark ring. I guess the best setup for rings is probably Assassin's Mark ring, Shaper Elder influence, or just Shaper influence. It doesn't have to be. And then a Mark of the Elder will probably give you much more damage than this thing. But I'd have to POB that to be 100% sure. But based off just how much flat attack damage and the added damage and the life percent and stuff you get on a Mark of the Elder, probably better. But that's what I'm rocking for now, and it's carrying me through all the games. So I mean, make do with what you have sometimes, isn't it? Then we just got some crappy added cold if you've crit recently gloves. There's nothing special going on here. Literally just resist life and that mod. Like I said, best in slot mod would be +1 frenzy, but they're on Warlord gloves and the waiting on them is quite severe. So to buy them it's expensive, and to roll them with good mods as well, probably a bit of a pain in the ass. But you could probably make, I mean, in a dream world you could awaken orb this mod with a +1 and hope you get something really good. That's a play, but then obviously awaken orbs are like 400C, so it's completely up to you, and you could obviously get nothing really. But even just those two mods and life could be a really good for your glove slot. Your other option is the Assassin's Mark gloves. I think I actually have a pair of those. I always have a pair of these lying around. These gloves, that's one way to get Assassin's Mark. That might be something even better than my current setup now if I was to fix my resists, because it gives you attack crit as well for accuracy rating, which is not bad at all. The only downside to these things is not super high on life. They only have minus resist to chaos, and they don't give you any other resists, so it's a bit more of a pain in the butt to sort your resists out. If you didn't have a Star Conjures and these boots, or you swap some other stuff out, you could easily fill out your resist more, but at the moment I've kind of got too many uniques on, I think. So it's kind of hard to get the resists where I need them. But I think I'm almost triple balanced, yeah. I'm 3%, was that 4%? That's 4%. I'm 4% off Fire Res, and I could use a Wise Oak, maybe it would be better than a Taste of Hate, because I'm almost triple balanced, but yeah. But talking a lot here, aren't I? Stygian Vise, obviously Stygian Vise is insanely good belt because you can put an Abyss in it. This one is literally just life resists. It's got some increased flash generation and a damage craft on it. Obviously not multi-mod, like a multi-LE one could be really strong if you can get like an insanely good one with like elemental damage to attacks. It's probably better than this. Like I said, this gear is not min-maxed at all. That 10% increased damage, the 32% increased damage element with attacks is probably way better mod than that. You can obviously get elemental damage on these as well, but you can't do it with fossils anymore. I think you have to do it with like Shaper influence or some other influences. But there are some nice mods you can get on a Stygian Vise. As long as it's a Stygian Vise, means you can put a jewel in it. You can get a lot of added cold and added bow damage on the bestials, and then phasing or onslaught. In this case I went onslaught because our phasing comes from our ascendancy, so it's nice to have some onslaught, and since we're not using an onslaught flask, that's how we get onslaught, and that's 10%, no, that's 20% attack, cast and move speed, so it's very strong. So but obviously we don't really have that up for bosses, so that's the only downside there. Then we've got some Dark Ray Vectors, because they are the only boots with a +1 on them. And +1 frenzies for us is strong as hell. The only downside to these boots, I say, is probably that when you don't have frenzies up, you feel like you're moving in slow motion, and it can be a little bit dangerous. But since our frenzies last long enough, usually phases and stuff are not too much of an issue. It's just when you first get into the map, you're going to feel extremely slow. Like, even it has reduced frenzy duration on it, but our duration's still like 15 to 20 seconds, I think, because we have all our past, like the whole passive tree and the ascendancy has a lot of increased. And you also get some damage, dodge attack, so 2% per frenzy. So if you're able to get 10 frenzies, that's like 20% and 50%. 20% chance to dodge attack hits and 50% move speed. At the moment I'm at 16, which is not bad for how much I've spent on the build, which is not a lot. The most expensive thing on this build is probably the chest. So boy is 6 linked. My bow was like 2x 6 linked, and this chest was like 5x 6 linked, I believe. But yeah, there are a few options for the boots. You can obviously get tailwind boots. I have some really nice tailwind boots for my other character that I can move over, but I don't know what's better, +1 frenzy or tailwind. It's hard to do the math in your head, because tailwind is 10% more action speed and that is more attack speed, so that is a lot of DPS, especially for Barrage. But who knows, maybe I'll test it out when I can sort my resists out. But like I said, if you're struggling with resists, I drop the helmet first and then these boots. You can get +1 as a corruption on gloves as well. That's another option. Those gloves that drop from the Cirrus fight. So is it Cyrus or Cirrus? I never say it right. They get fucking Varlorb to death, and there's always ones with like curse on hit +1, attack, crit. There's a bunch of combinations you can get, even ones that have bricked and then rolled really well. So there's a lot of options for like +1 frenzy on gloves as well, not just a warlord influence. And then there's those other boots. I can't remember the name of them now. They're actually quite expensive this league. It's the Dex life stacking boots, because they have a huge life regen roll on them as well, to help counteract the damage you take from the Hopeshredder. But Stone Golem, like I said, with probably some stuff on the tree, probably gives us regen, is more than enough. And that is the gear. The gem links are: our single target is Barrage, Cold Pen, Ellie damage, damage on full life, inspiration, and Ellie focus. Now you don't have to use Ellie focus. If you don't use Ellie focus, you're going to be able to like freeze and chill and all that good stuff with your Barrage. But this, as a straight up multiplier, is just by far the best, especially when we're scaling this much cold. Barrage scales purely off base damage, and we're adding a shitload of cold base damage here, so that is something to consider. I did the math for this one in PoB, and this was just the best setup for my current gear. So if you've got different gear and there's you've got some extra frenzies, or you've got actually curses and stuff, it might be slightly different. But I think the only thing really that you could swap out is maybe inspiration or Ellie focus for some other stuff. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that would give you more damage. Great projectiles was pretty close, but it's because it's got a less multiplier on it, it ends up being worse. So that's entirely up to you, but this is what I'm rocking, and this is when I swapped to this from what I was using before, I saw a massive DPS increase, like almost double. And also inspiration helps with mana. We don't have a lot of mana, so sometimes you run out of mana if you're not hitting stuff and leeching. And obviously you can get awakened cold pen, you can get awakened damage on Ellie damage and focus and stuff. Damage on full life actually works, because remember, this is only while you're moving, and when you barrage you're stood still, because you can actually cancel your barrage if you not with I don't think you can actually with normal barrage. If you have greater multiple projectiles, you can actually cancel like that then. So you can actually cancel your thing. So whenever you're doing damage with barrage, you are at full life unless you've been hit or you're degenning, which is not very often. A lot of the time you're either alive or you're dead. You're full life or you're dead. That's PoE in a nutshell. There's not very much in between. If you hit a pot as well and you get hit, then you pretty much go back to full life. So It is probably one of the best gems in the game, to be honest, because it's just such a massive damage increase. So yeah, that's why I ended up using that if that was a concern. Then for our clear, our ice shot, just a reminder that the fizz converted does not need any help from this bit in the tree, because if you look at the gem, it has fizz converted, but it deals 176% of our base damage. Our base damage of our bow is purely, well, not purely, mostly elemental, and the fizz is basically just the base of whatever this bow is, which is a ranger bow, which is not a lot. So putting points into that is really not that much worth it. It will give you some damage, because then obviously that fizz is then cold damage. That cold damage has been scaled by all our cold modifiers, like Hatred. But for like 3 points, I'd much rather, nest myself into a nice little cluster jewel setup. So that's why I haven't done that. And obviously we're using ice shots level 21. It doesn't really matter too much. Get 20. You're not going to notice the difference between 20 and 21. It's an attack, so unfortunately you get about 1% extra base damage, which is not that great. Then we're using LE damage with attacks, obviously. I'm using chained. You can use fork. I even tried awakening fork, so you get 2 additional forks. And the difference between that and chain just felt better. Also, you don't have to aim, because all you have to do is hit one mob, and then it will just chain off. And like I said before, it'll it'll do its cone AOE damage, and it just felt 1,000 times better than fork. So I don't know why people use fork with it. That's why I tried it, because a lot of people use fork with ice shot, but for me, chain just felt 1,000 times better. And obviously, if you are a baller and you can get awakened chain with an additional chain, I think it's like 40 extra awakened chain, probably not too worth it, but then you'll be clearing maps in like 2 shots, be clearing screenfuls. Obviously Mirage Archer for clearing. You can swap this out if you don't really care for Mirage Archer. Just think of it as like a 70% more damage multiplier, because it does 30% less. The guy who comes up and shoots, but he's shooting the same skill as you, and he's also shooting it while you're moving, so that's an extra benefit. It's just good for clear. You can also proc it right before you're about to shoot a boss with Barrage, because if you shoot it, then he pops up and he'll start shooting ice shots while you're barraging, so it's an extra bit of DPS there, if you use it like that. Then we've got Ice Bite. You would think Ice Bite would be an absolute golden gem in a frenzy stacking build, but in reality, the amount of frenzies you stack, even at 8, which is pretty decent, we got an extra one from our Ascendancy, we got 1 on our boots. Even if we had 9, Ice Bite's really not as insane as it looks, unfortunately, in this build, but it is still good enough to put in the main clear skill for Ice Shot, since we get like the extra added effectiveness damage as well. You can just swap in a normal awakened cold damage support, and if you not awakened, even a normal one at 2020 is almost as good as this. At max frenzies, this is better than a normal added cold, but if you can get an awakened cold leveled to like 5, that is going to be 1,000 times better, so do that. And then we are using Arrow Nova for some reason. I kind of like it. It's quite fun, it's quite different, so why the hell not? But most people are going to use greater projectiles, greater multiple projectiles, just so you get like that cone of the 4, it'll be 5 projectiles, and then obviously when you got your Dying Sun up, you shitting out a few more, and that brings us to the. Actually, it doesn't bring us to the Flasks. I have more links. Obviously, Hatred. It's a gold build. Herald of Ice and Precision for some extra crit and some accuracy, just to help get us closer and closer to 100. We're at 99 at the moment. It's good enough for me, to be honest. Even 95 against evasive monsters is pretty good. I mean, you're not going to miss that many shots. It's not going to be a problem. Obviously, Hatred gives us more cold multiplier. Fizz is extra cold is not too strong here, but it's always nice to have a little bit extra damage. But the more multiplier is massive. Herald of Ice obviously gives us some added cold. We're using the ring as well, and it gives us some nice extra clear with the shatters, and it's just satisfying as hell. And then we've got Precision, and all this is connected with an Enlighten, just to give us some more room with the mana, because our Ice Shot does actually cost 53 per. So if we're not hitting anything, we easily oom ourselves in like 2 shots. And when we have frenzies up, our attack speed is even more insane. It's very easy to oom yourself in a map. so be wary of that. You can also de-level the precision, find accuracy somewhere else, lose a little bit of crit. I mean, the difference between 35 crit, having this like a lot lower level, and having it at this level, I've got it now at 11, not going to be noticeable at all. The only thing that's going to be noticeable is just getting the accuracy stacked up a little bit harder, because it is flat accuracy, so if you have increased accuracy, then it's going to be more valuable. So that's the helmet. Then I'm using Stone Golem with an Empower, because I didn't know what else to put in here. The Empower is pretty much irrelevant, but it does help give this thing a bit more life so it survives. I definitely recommend getting one max rank so it doesn't die constantly, because it's a pain in the ass to cast. Then I'm using Dash with Second Wind for movement. The Second Wind actually gives you 2 uses of Golem, but you can only have 1 up anyway, so just ignore that. But yeah, Dash and Second Wind are really one of the best movement setups in the game now, especially for a 2-link. I mean, it's just so good. And I play on Predictive as well, so I end up fucking desyncing half the time, but it still feels really good. And then finally, we got a cast on Damage Taken setup, Wave of Conviction, Increased Duration, Steel Skin. So when we get hit, we proc when we get hit for how much? 1,000 life, which is not a lot, but you know, if we're going to get hit through our evade and dodge, it's usually going to do a fair bit of damage. We're going to proc a Steel Skin, so we're going to get another 800 shield, which is quite nice. It's going to last a little bit longer, just increased duration, and we're also going to send out a Wave of Conviction, which is just going to give stuff LE weakness. And I don't even think mine is actually doing the correct damage type. It is, don't worry. I guess it's all the added cold from like the ring, because if it specifies attacks, then it won't obviously apply to this. But even this added cold from the bow per frenzy, I don't know if it stacks onto the bow's damage or it gives you that as just like as if you had it on some other piece of gear. But either way, this is doing enough cold damage to proc cold exposure, which is 25% minus early resistance. So it's a lot of damage. Usually procs on a boss because you stood there for the longest time. Eventually you get hit. You hit them. Now you're doing more damage to them, so that's lovely. Plus that and cold pen, you're doing a lot of cold penetration there. So it's a lovely little setup. Our flasks, we're using the blood of the Karui for some reason. I just had one. I was like, fuck it, I'll slap it on. I thought it'd be good because obviously if we're draining life, you don't want like just an 800% insta flask. We're immune to bleed as well. Well, at least corrupted blood from one of our jewels, which I'll show in a minute. But so we don't have to worry about having bleed immunity, and we are immune to ailments when we're phasing, so we don't have to worry about that neither. But I've just been using it, and I like it, and it gives you like full life at the end of the flask. So if you are constantly getting bombarded and you're healing, and it's just not enough, then at the end of the flask, bam, you're at full life. It's a very juicy flask. I've never used it before, and I like it, so I've just kept using it. Obviously, a normal bleed immune flask would be good, or a freeze immune flask. I mean, when we're not phasing, sometimes you can get hit, so I guess maybe. But then we're using a diamond flask. We are crit. We can get curse removal on this because we don't have to worry about any other. We don't have to worry about freeze and getting ignited, which is lovely. Increased duration is quite nice. Move speed flask. It's not even a double move speed. It's just a basic move speed. There's some extra charges. I couldn't be asked to grab my one off my other character, so this is what I'm working with. Obviously a dying sun, we scale off projectiles. The area effect is quite nice for the cone of the ice shot as well, so it's double nice. And it's not even qualityed. I'm an idiot, I'm going to quality it right now. Dying sun's pretty cheap as well, so you'll be surprised at how cheap it is. I was. And then we're using Taste of Fate. Like I said, that was more as an idea to stop the degen from being so brutal. The Fizz's extra is not doing too much because, like I said, we're not scaling off a lot of Fizz, so it's not giving us too much extra damage. Let's see. Yeah, it gives us like 2k damage, so barely anything. But then we're also taking 20% less cold damage, which obviously helps with the degen and just makes us tankier in general, so it's quite nice. And it also gives us some avoid, but that doesn't really matter. And Fizz from hits is taking us cold damage, so I mean it's quite nice. There's that. It's just a nice flask. It looks cool as well because it's had its artwork updated. And now the tree. We're at 40 minutes and I'm only just getting to the freaking tree. I'm just trying to over-explain everything. I know some people like it like that. So our ascendancy is Raider. And why did we go Raider? Because it has a frenzy branch. And this frenzy branch gives us pretty much unlimited frenzy generation on anything, even bosses, and a +1 frenzy. And a fuck ton of evasion, move speed, attack damage per frenzy. So you just times all those numbers by 8. And that's what we've pretty much perma got once we've hit 1 pack of mobs. So it's pretty insane. You feel pretty nifty when you're as soon as you've hit something in a map, because all your attack speed even from your boots, you're just like a little speed racer. Feels good, man. And then we've taken the LE damage and phasing nodes. So this one just gives us a fuck ton of LE damage, and it gives us phasing while we're at maximum frenzies, which is pretty much all the time. We also have phasing when we have onslaught, but that's pretty much irrelevant because our onslaught's only getting proc from our 4% jewels, so not that much. And you also gain phasing on for 4 seconds on kill, which is nice. But like I said, we're always at max frenzies even when we're hitting a boss, so we're always phasing when we're on a boss as well. And then this one means we get move speed, ailment, immunity, dodge, exposure, and less accuracy while mobs are near us while we're phasing. The exposure is when we're phasing. Okay, I was about to say the only one there that doesn't matter about phasing is the is the weakness, but it isn't. All of that is when we're phasing, which is, like I said, all the time. So we're just getting a shit ton of dodge, mood speed, and damage, and survivability, and it's just a nice node. You can go this route and grab the onslaught nodes and just have mad onslaught, because this does give more evade as well, which is quite nice. And that means you'll just be a lot faster in terms of movement speed, probably, maybe not. But then you have to find a way of phasing through stuff. You don't have to, but it feels a lot smoother. This probably does give you, in Path of Building, more DPS output, but it doesn't factor in the exposure from this, because it's red. The line's red in POB, which means it doesn't calculate it. So on a boss, you're probably doing more damage with this setup than you are this setup. So just bear that in mind on POB if you're thinking, why the hell has he done that? Well, this is clearly better. And also phasing and having all this extra ailment, immunity, and all that good stuff is just such nice quality of life as well for mapping, and even bossing, I guess, because we have that up permanently. Other than that, the tree's not too special. We're grabbing most of the normal stuff. The only thing we're kind of not grabbing that you would normally grab in a bow build, that's a ranger, is this wheel here. 2 reasons. One, I hate this node. The knockback is so annoying. If you knock back stuff with Barrage, you also knock stuff out of your Void Flexure charges, so bear that in mind. It is a shit ton of crit, but for me, not worth it. The amount of damage you lose from just knocking enemies out of the way of stuff probably outweighs the damage you get from the node. The node below is probably not worth taking. It's just like attack speed and damage. It's meh. And when you consider that we can do cluster jewels now, I'd rather do cluster jewels. We're only taking acrobatics, you haven't taken phase acro, but if you want to be a bit more of a nifty ninja and dodge stuff, you could definitely go phase acro. We're then using a lion eyes full, that's then making the claw, bottom half of the claw node, which is just crit and crit multi, which is huge for us. All bow modifiers, and it gives us huge leech and mana leech, so it pretty much covers that. I mean, look, 50% total recovery per second. It's insane. I mean, I wouldn't even swap this for a cluster jewel. I believe this to be stronger, to be honest. And I also got a corrupted blood one for 15C. And if you go look at the market, how much one of these is, last time I checked, the cheapest one you could get was 6x. So I got pretty lucky with that snipe there. So I made a bit of profit, a bit of stonks. But you don't have to get corrupted blood, just get a normal one. They're probably not worth too much. They're common enough. And then obviously we've gone up here, taking Assassinate, huge crit node, and then grabbing all the life we can, and we're also grabbing all the frenzies, and we've got a bit more life here. I might take this whole section out soon if I get some better cluster jewels. I did have this bit as well before I had a cluster jewel set up, which I'm about to show you in a second. These nodes here are quite decent, but to save some points so we can go deep inside a cluster jewel. I took these out, and I'm probably going to end up taking these out when I can find something that's at least equivalent of what I'm losing, and if not better. And then we have a Watcher's Eye. We have a base crit Watcher's Eye for Hatred. Quite expensive. I think this was 7x. It's probably the most expensive thing in the build. Not necessary at all, but obviously base crit is really nice, since all our crit will scale off of that. So it just makes it easier to have higher crit. Without this, we'll probably have like 10% crit on our sheet lost. So if you've got enough money for a Hatred crit, I would definitely get that. I mean, there's other cheap options like the increased cold damage while affected by Hatred is probably quite a nice damage increase. And then if you don't want to get a Watcher's Eye, then just save yourself 2 points into a cluster jewel. And we're grabbing the Ellie damage, life, obviously point blank. Barrage scales from this a lot. We want to stand on top of stuff, unfortunately, as a bow build, and just do 30% more damage. Insane. Cold damage node here. I've taken beef. I've allocated beef because I need some strength, unfortunately. That's just because my gear sucks. Obviously, Golem's Blood, regen as well, remember that. Frenzy. And I've actually taken this one just purely because it has 1% life per second on it. Otherwise, you could probably get rid of that and just find the strength somewhere else. And then we have a little cluster jewel setup going on, a little diddy one. We have a large with 2 added passive jewel sockets, and then 2 small. We're using a attack damage one because it was the only one I had at the time that had 8 passive skill points, because I wanted a shorter travel distance because I didn't have any points to spare. Basically got some attack damage while leeching. This one's pretty shit, but I have to go through it to get this. This one's better than the other one. This Ellie damage here, there's 30 Ellie damage and some freeze and stuff. Quite nice, but unfortunately these are in the wrong positions. So, and coming around this side takes up more points. So this one's pretty good. Attack damage, attack speed, damage with ailments as well. Not that it really matters. I mean, we don't actually do that, so forget I said that. But then increased global accuracy is nice. And then we got 2 life nodes sticking out of this. 5%, 5%, 8%, but also a bunch of regen and recovery from Flasks. Very nice. And then we got life, big dick life. I mean, you could have this one over here as well, which is probably just as good. But I think I got increased effect on this. So this is 5, 5, 8. Well, this is 4, 4, 10. You also get the flat 20 as well. In a perfect world, I'd probably have a large, then 2 mediums, and then these ones sticking off the mediums, but you'd have to save some points. Like I said, you can save like 5 here, which is enough for a medium. I'd say another medium setup, that stuck out. And then if I leveled up a bit more, 94 is not too hard to get to, even as a casual. You could probably make that, and then get better gear as well, so I don't have to waste the points doing this. And then you could probably gut this side of the tree, to be honest. Maybe save 2 points there, a point there, maybe a point there, and then these points here. You can make up the life with cluster jewels, they're pretty strong. So yeah, I've talked too much. I'm at 48 minutes, and if you're still listening, you are a real legend, and I hope most of this made sense. The last thing I'm going to say is this is but a template for you to go and just destroy content with way better gear, and the more currency you have, the better this thing is going to do, because the potential for what I've got to what I could upgrade to if I spent some time on it seems pretty nutty. And even as like an evade based character, I do feel more tankier than my assassin did, and I have pretty much the same like life pool. I don't even have mind over matter as well to worry about. But like I said, randomly you'll get one shot. It's unfortunate, it's just the way dodge works, I guess. But yeah, I'm going to stop talking because I talk too much. So if you have any questions or I've overlooked something, here's the cosmetics as well. Oh look, a little cell to end the video with. You want to see what I'm using? This is what I'm using right now. Just the Crusader set. It's probably one of the best sets in the game. Changed my mind. It looks so fucking good. And that's it. Thanks for watching. And any questions, leave them down below. If you want to come watch me live on Strum, then come follow me on Twitch. Danny Fitzy, or Danny Boys Fitzy, I think. Can't remember my own Twitch. And yeah, have a good day and peace out. Kill some mobs. Bye. Okay, bye.